Bill Salus is an author, radio talk show host, and a scholar. If you notice in the Drudge Report this week and other media outlets, something dramatic had happened. Benjamin Netanyahu had scheduled elections in 2 or 3 months from now, but in an abrupt viewpoint, he went back the other direction. He kind of reversed course. He formed a coalition of sorts with the main opposition party, and many thought this was a precursor to an Israeli attack on Iran with this rather abrupt about-face. Joining me now is that same Bill Salus. And Bill, welcome to the Bill Cunningham Show. Bill, how are you?
Hey, it's great to be on the show, Willie.
Talk to me about Benjamin Netanyahu, who was calling for elections, and historically talk about what this may mean for Israel and for Iran.
Well, yes, he was his term was due up at the end of 2013, and he kind of surprised people with calling for earlier elections for various purposes. A lot of us thought it was really to get more support for a Israeli preemptive strike against Iran, and so we was kind of wondering, well, what would the outcome of that be? It was kind of a given, and then he shocked everybody earlier this week by hooking up with Shaul Mofaz, who was born in Tehran. He speaks Farsi. He was the defense minister for Ariel Sharon, and put together the Kadima and the Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party, and they put together one of the broadest coalitions in Israel history. No one really caught everybody off guard, and I think the Arab press has pretty much summed it up. They're pretty much calling it a preamble for war. The Al-Quds of Al Arabia's headline said Netanyahu forming war government. The UAE paper Al Bayan said a government challenges peace.
And hasn't that happened before in Israeli history? When Egypt in 1970, might have been 67, was on the border and the survival of Israel was at stake, there was a coalition government formed?
Well, I believe you're correct on that. But this really is obviously done out of necessity, and it isn't a move for Mideast peace. A couple of things we've got to tackle early on with this coalition is this Tau law. They're trying to beef up their military, quite frankly, Willie. I mean, they just called 6 battalions of reservists to man the borders of Syria and Egypt. This Tau law deals with the Orthodox yeshiva students in Israel that they're sort of the conscientious objectors, that they don't want to be involved in the mandatory military. When you're 18 years old in Israel, you have to serve 3 years if you're a man in the army and 2 years if you're a woman. Right. And so these folks were doing community service and things and finding a way out. And we're talking tens of thousands of potential military, troops here.
So Bill Salus, you're saying they're calling up the reserves, they're calling off elections, forming a coalition government, and you're saying Israel is now ready to go?
Well, that really is what it looks like. Even the defense minister, Ehud Barak, has said that 2012 is the year that Israel must deal with Iran's nuclear program. Even our Leon Panetta, Secretary of Defense over here, leaked out through David Ignatius, you probably reported on this before, that this strike could even happen in April, May, or June of this year. I don't think it's really a question of if or how, but really when Israel is about to strike Iran's nuclear sites.
If I would have you on 30 days after that strike, talk to me about the condition of the Middle East then.
Well, no one is expecting Iran to roll over and play possum on this sort of a thing, and that's if Israel preempts the first attack. If you read the Arab presses, they're pretty much suggesting Iran might call together its proxies of Syria, Hezbollah, and Hamas, and first strike Israel. So, one morning we're going to wake up and missiles are going to be flying. We just don't know in which direction they're going to start with. Now, the problem is, once you have this strike, one way or another, you've just opened Pandora's box in the Middle East, because this won't be another 34-day conflict with Hezbollah or a 22-day conflict with Hamas, Operation Cast Lead. This could be the mother of all Mideast wars, Willie.
Well, the thing that maybe is good is there's a broken Egyptian government and there's a broken Syrian government. And so in the past, you had to worry about your west and your north. Now, I would assume the Syrian army is debilitated, and I would assume the Egyptian army is broken. Am I wrong?
Well, I wouldn't go quite that far, Willie, because the Syrian army, remember that Syria is still in a state of war with Israel. They were not one of the countries that formed a peace treaty with them, and that one that Egypt formed in 1979 is about to just disintegrate with almost every presidential candidate running in Egypt right now, and their elections begin on May 23rd, is looking at that peace treaty with Israel as as being a problem, a national security
Right.
threat, and various things like that. So I would not say that. I think Syria's already, Bashar Assad, he needs to do something to fix his situation over there. And he's already threatened at the end of last year that he would send in 6 hours a specific plan, missiles into Tel Aviv. And keep in mind, Iran has armed Syria and Hezbollah to the teeth with Scud-D. Syria's got Scud-Ds. Those can go over 400 miles and hit within a 20-yard accuracy. Anywhere in northern Syria could hit anywhere in southern Israel and do serious damage, and they can carry chemical weapons.
This would be a perfect time for Syria to attack Israel because it would unite the Syrians against Israel.
Well, yeah. I mean, the Arabs have been fighting the Arabs from time immemorial, but the one thing that they've always had as a unifying factor amongst the Arabs is a common hatred of Israel and the Jew. And so you're absolutely right, Bill. I mean, and my concern is, you can almost play this out geopolitically. You could have Iran and Israel going at it. Next thing you know, you got Israel having to deal with Syria and Hezbollah and Hamas. All of a sudden, Israel does something that very upsets the Arab League, and you've thrown all the Middle East into a major World War III over there.
Bill Salus, author of Israelistine, where do we go? I mean, Americans, what do we do if all of a sudden the Straits of Hormuz are shut down, Iran is broken, fighting militarily with Israel, Syrians are now united against the Jews, the Egyptian army marches to the east? What do we do?
Well, I'm going to give you a quick explanation on that, but I'm going to point your audience to my new book, Revelation Road, Hope Beyond the Horizon. They can get it on my website, prophecydepot.com, and I'll tell you why, Willie, because I run those whole scenarios out through, it starts as a novel for 120 pages of a family's journey through this apocalyptic Middle East stuff and how it affects them in America, and then I write 312 pages of extensive commentary, biblically supported about how this could really happen and how this was foretold to happen and what would you do to prepare for it, especially in America. And that's the point. Over a quarter to a third of the world's oil shoots through those straits over there, the Strait of Hormuz, the Suez Canal, the Gulf of Aden. And, just imagine what's going to happen. And we're already out here in California, and I'm in the Palm Springs area, at $4.39 a gallon. So I would suspect that, we could see $1, $2, $3 a gallon shoot right up. And so, this is just a starting point. What else could happen? Markets could collapse. I mean, look, the global economies could go into a tailspin, and we're already seeing that happening with Greece and Europe and all that. It's a very dangerous, volatile situation, and it could happen at any given morning.
Well, nothing we can do to stop it. Is Israel, with Obama in the White House, would he be the same friend of Israel that Bush or Reagan would have been?
Well, I know President Obama would like to have us think that, but if you look at his track record, he has done nothing to really show the kind of support that we need to give to Israel. Israel is more isolated now with America than they've ever been before, and so no, I don't feel comfortable with that, to be quite honest with you. And I'm not going to throw political stuff out here, but I happen to know that Benjamin Netanyahu and Mitt Romney happen to be friends, and we need someone in there that's going to support this Jewish state here. They're our ally over there, and there's I believe we've been a blessed country because we've been blessing Israel throughout the years.
Well, then it might be better to wait if Romney gets elected.
Yeah, if he gets elected, that's a good point.
And that's
if he
50-50. I don't know.
Yeah, well, he's winning one poll 50 to 43. It was on the Drudge Report, but. President Obama, he's a real campaigner, and he's on the campaign trail right now. I don't think Benjamin Netanyahu has the luxury of waiting for that. They're watching what's going on in Syria, over there in Israel. They're watching what's going on in the elections over here, but they're also watching the immunity zone that Iran is marching towards, where they're going to have their nuclear program developed in a position where any strike upon them is going to do little to no damage. I mean, they're going to be able to keep going forward with their nuclear program. So
that's kind of a big issue that. A lot of the military experts say you may strike. It would be a misdemeanor. It wouldn't really stop the Iranians from building nuclear weapons anyway. It's too hardened. They're too dispersed. It is too difficult. And so then it would be inept. Then it would be weak. Then the world would be in flames, and no reason Iran would still march toward a nuclear weapon anyway.
Well, yeah, and that may not be the case just yet, but that will be the case shortly. Even Defense Minister Ehud Barak of Israel has said this is the main thing they're watching, is this immunity zone that Iran is moving towards. So, really, I don't if you look back at the history over the last few years here, there was a computer worm, a Stuxnet virus that kind of threw Iran's program back a little bit. There's been killing of nuclear scientists over there, bombing of installations with important missiles and things like that, maybe the Shahab 3s and whatnot that carry this payload. But, it's gotten to a point now where that's only done so much to suspend whoever was responsible for all that. It's only done so much to suspend the nuclear program. And right now the indications are that Iran's nuclear program is going faster than it has ever gone. Right. And this meeting that's coming up in Baghdad with the G5+1, I believe it's on May 23rd, is really going to be probably just more of a farce, allowing Iran to buy more time. Matter of fact, some of the reports coming out of Iran right now is that the West has abandoned Israel. This is an indication of that Iran is going to start to use leverage against the West now and get more of what they want in these meetings and these talks. I mean, it's just the opposite psychology, because you're not dealing with a rational actor over there. You're dealing with a Shiite Islamic theology over there and political system that it's all about them moving forward to take over the whole Middle East, more proxies, Iraq, Jordan. They want Mecca and Medina and Saudi Arabia. It's a whole big deal that Iran's working on.
All right, Bill Salus, we got to run. What is your website where I can direct the American people toward? What is the website?
It is prophecydepot.com. That's Prophecy Depot, like HomeDepot.com. And my brand new book, Revelation Road, Hope Beyond the Horizon, gives you all the geopolitics of what we've been talking about. And I'm warning people about what's going to happen in this book. I invite them to get it at prophecydepot.com.
All right, Bill, thank you very much. We'll do it again.
All right, Willie, thank you.
You're the man.